Okay. Hi, friends. Welcome to Care Team Chronicles. My name is Sasha. Today, I am so happy that we have Realm of Caring's Lisa here to join us to talk about women's health. Lisa, thank you for being here with us.
You're welcome, Sasha. I am so excited about doing women's health. I recently did men's health with Steve Bond, one of our care specialists and client advocates, and I learned so much. And I just feel like I have so much more to offer this topic as a woman that has walked this earth for 52 years.
Yes. And if you missed that Care Team Chronicles with Men's Health with Steve and Lisa, you can find it on our YouTube page. So do look at that because it is very interesting. A lot of information. And Lisa, I cannot think of a better person to have join me to talk about women's health, women's well being, just putting women, as you have said before, in the forefront because you are such a pioneer and an advocate for that. So I'm the lucky one to have you here. Thank you.
Oh, you're so gracious. Thank you so much. I was telling Sasha before we went live that women, and I don't know, I guess it's just part of our genetic makeup that we put everyone before ourselves, our children, our husbands, our partners, the tune up in the car, everything before our very own health and our very own desires. And so I think that it's important for us to dedicate this little bit of time for us to walk to the front of the line and talk about so many things that we're just these wonderful, multi-layered, complex, beautiful human beings. And so is our systems, right?
Yes, absolutely. And with those symptoms or with those systems come a lot of conditions that are specific to women. So, what are those conditions that we can kind of touch upon today?
Well, there's many.
Mhm.
And before I say them, I want to say that the reason we're even mentioning them is because there's hope and because we want you to call us and feel comfortable talking to us about this. You don't have to have a dire medical condition to talk to care specialists at the Realm of Caring. You can talk to us about PMS. I want to bring up PMS because it's I think one that in the longest spans of our lifetime, we experience premenstrual syndrome. Most of us, unfortunately, we do. Tell us a little bit about that, Sasha.
Yes, it's very true. Yes, so we have PMS. We with PMS, we get the cramps, we get the hormonal imbalances, we get the bloating, the weight gain. The depression, anxiety. There's just so much that comes along with that, and we kind of brush it off at the term PMS, and poke fun of it sometimes. But it's like you said, it's seriously debilitating, and that along with menopause, along with endometriosis, along with postpartum depression, mother's anxiety. There are just so many things that women silently suffer through. I think you've said that before, that they silently suffer. And it's so true because they're putting everybody first.
And also because one thing that I do, I can't say I really get upset about it, but I don't like it, is when we're poked fun of, especially by the opposite sex, and people say that women are crazy, and these are really serious issues that we go through, and it's not easy, and it's not craziness. Our hormones dictate so much of our bodies and the way that we move and feel through the world. So
Mhm.
it's really, I think, a bigger disorder than we credit it for. And so I would really, and sorry, I'm going to jump to another subject. I do this sometimes. I also want to say that when it comes to menopause, because a lot of what we experience with PMS has to do with that drop off in estrogen. And really, that's what happens when we go through menopause. So, menopause is almost like a continual. PMS, if you can imagine that.
Yes.
So I would love to speak a little more about PMS just because it is such a huge subject. So what are some things that are helpful, Sasha, from what you've learned?
Yeah, well, so one big thing is when you are experiencing the estrogen drop off, like you mentioned, our serotonin levels also go down. Our serotonin is our mood modulator,
Mhm.
and CBD is a modulator itself. So it kind of fills in the gaps of those deficiencies we might be experiencing. So if we are experiencing depression while going through PMS, what CBD might be able to do is that it can help our body to use the serotonin it is already producing just more effectively. So it can help to stabilize that mood. It can help to balance those hormones that might be a cause for heavy bleeding, for example. And, heavy bleeding could be going through multiple pads or tampons in a day, or it could be a period that lasts longer than 7 days. Those can both be considered heavy bleeding. And a hormone imbalance,
For a period. Long.
yes, yes. And a hormone imbalance could be too much or too little progesterone or estrogen. So there's just so many different factors that come into play. And when it comes to heavy bleeding, you actually have an interesting story about that, anecdotally speaking.
Yes. So I had a couple come to the realm of caring to talk about her husband who has epilepsy and his seizure disorder. And his wife, wanted to be extra careful. This was quite a few years ago. So we didn't know as much as we know now. And she decided to take CBD, just how her husband would, just to see if it would be safe for him. And I thought that was a lovely thing to do. I went and had done that myself. but but she did, and she said, I asked her, I was so curious. I said, well, what did you notice? And she said, well, I noticed that my heavy bleeding went away. It normalized the flow of my periods. And I was so taken by that I was more interested in, I'm like, what else? And, not even pay attention to her poor husband. um, and anecdotally, I also asked her, well, what happened? Because they both couldn't afford to be on this therapy at the same time, very unfortunately. So if you get a chance, join our research, because one of the things we want to do with that is be able to have insurances provide this like they would any other medication. Now, back to my story. Her menstrual flow went right back when she discontinued use, which I also thought that was very interesting as well.
That is very interesting. And yes, to plug into that research just a little bit more, it is important because sometimes we're going through these experiences that we realize from cannabinoid therapy and we think, how can I help other people who might need to or might benefit from this as well? I
Mhm.
could speak to myself, even, with hair growth from being pregnant.
Us about that. So this is also interesting, and it sounds frivolous, I think, but I don't really believe that it is. I was telling Sasha that it took me 10 years, sorry, 10, to let my hair grow natural. And it was one of the hardest physical changes that I've done. And I tried many times, and the moment I would have 3 inches roots on my head, I would freak out and I'd start dyeing my hair again. And it made me realize that hair, for whatever reason, which I don't know, is really important. Think about men with receding hairlines or when they start balding and how traumatic that is for many men. And also consider um, people going through chemotherapy and losing their hair altogether, and how I've seen good friends of mine go through this and posting on Facebook and just showing the trauma of it all. So hair is important. I don't know why, but it is. So Sasha, please tell us your story.
It is important. And when I was pregnant with my son, for whatever reason, I couldn't tell you at the time, my hair just It stopped growing. And when I tell you it stopped growing, I mean my armpits, my legs. I wasn't shaving for at least a week at a time, sometimes more. And on my head, it was just stuck. It was a little growing a little bit faster on one side than the other. I cut it short.
Babies anymore. That's not cool.
It wasn't growing. And then so I thought, okay, I gave birth to my beautiful baby boy. Everybody said it was going to be a girl because my hair wasn't growing and because of that old wives' tale. Not true. It was a boy, and I thought, okay, my hair will now grow, and it still didn't grow. A year later, it was just short. So I started CBD therapy for myself last October for many reasons related to pregnancy and postpartum. So there was anxiety, jolting out of bed in the middle of the night with nightmares. My son was falling down the stairs, and pain with my period that would come, a lot of cramping. And so it wasn't necessarily for my hair, for any hormonal imbalances, but I noticed after a month, my hair started growing at a normal rate. And then here we are a year later, and it's back to normal growth. I've cut it once already and it still is going. So I can't speak to the science of that, but I can say, anecdotally speaking, I know there must have been some hormonal imbalances going on, because that was one of the benefits I noticed without even intending to have that benefit.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, that's so great. In fact, I just saw Sasha in the office the other day, and it was the first thing I noticed. I'm like, your hair's so long. So, and I thought maybe it was COVID or anything, but just keeping a regular CBD routine, I think once again, it comes to that balance. It can affect so many things. Um, Sasha, you also mentioned to me, and this is something that comes along with PMS and hormone disbalance, is acne.
Yes, yeah. So along with the hormone imbalance, the breakouts on my jawline, which come, that time of the month, it's a hormonal breakout in that area. You can look at the diagrams of your face online, and
Your
so
back sometimes for some women
yeah,
with
yes. And so and I don't know if this is what I was supposed to do, but I thought it's natural. I'm taking it internally. Why not try it on this inflammation on my skin? CBD is a great anti-inflammatory, or it can be. It's showing through research that it is. Apply it to my skin, and that doesn't happen at that time of the month anymore. It's, when I say that this has saved me in many ways, I'm, being honest with that, because also with the pelvic floor pain, with my cramps after having my son, they've always been really bad. So it definitely brought a lot of what I was experiencing, this off balance. It brought me back to a balance. I felt that homeostasis in my body, and I continue to feel it with my CBD therapy.
That's incredible. And when we talk about things like that, I think one of the beautiful things too is little to no side effects, which not a lot of things that we can take really, it can be natural and helpful without creating a host of other problems.
Absolutely. Yes. And that's, one of the benefits. You don't have to always reach for the bottle of Advil, because you're feeling less in pain, and day to day, just feeling more quality, just a better quality of life.
Something that you touched upon when you were speaking to that I'd like to bring to light is you mentioned postpartum depression. And once again, statistically, I don't know what the statistics are, but being a mom as well, having had two children, I know what a difficult time that was. And I don't think we speak about that often enough. And the reason for that could be, and I don't know, but everybody expects that it's the happiest time of your life. You just had a baby, and everything should be perfect. And this is what we were put on this earth to do. Not really, but some people feel that. Um, so and once again, once that baby comes, if you were second, third, fourth in line, now you're, way back. And it's the way it has to be. But once again, I don't think postpartum depression really gets the attention that it merits, because we feel bad. At least I did. After I had my kids, you feel like, some people like, oh my God, like, what have I done? I will never sleep again. It's so hard. It's like your life just flips over, and it's true, your life will never be the same again, nor will your sleep. And nobody tells you how hard it really can be. So besides the physical and hormonal imbalances that can take you off balance, I think emotionally you can easily go off balance, and just not sleeping, at least for me, really was so difficult. Did you find that at all?
Oh,
Sasha?
absolutely. Yes. And I feel like that's so important that you're touching on the sleeping aspect, and how you mentioned that it can, almost exaggerate those feelings of depression and anxiety. And not just for you and I, for mothers, but for women suffering endometriosis, or who aren't getting pregnant and they are losing sleep because of the pain. And then that pain itself can also trigger these feelings of anxiety and depression. And it's just this awful cyclical action that takes place.
Cyclical, yes, absolutely. Like I said, I think I mean, one thing triggers the other, right? When I don't, I'm going to speak. For me, one of the most important things, and anybody that knows me can attest to this, is sleeping. And oftentimes when our body goes into dis-ease, it's because we're not doing the very basic things, which is sleeping well, eating well. It's kind of, whenever I get stressed, or I start feeling like I'm going to get sick, I just go back to basics. I make sure I sleep 8 hours or more. I go to sleep early. I don't drink alcohol. I eat really, really well. I drink lots of water. I mean, we should be doing this all the time, but as we well know, we're not perfect beings, and it's very easy to get off balance.
Absolutely. And I know we've been going for a little bit about these, different conditions, the symptoms that arise from these conditions. And I feel like we could go on because the list is so long. But how about we talk a little bit about what nobody wants to talk about, or maybe they only talk about, like you said, with their girlfriends.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yes. So let's talk about the sexual dysfunction, the sex aspect of all of these conditions. What's happening? What's going on? Because not only do we, at those times, we don't want it, we're not in the mood, but also it's painful. It can be very painful for many women. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that.
Well, let's talk about that, because as estrogen levels drop, one of the things that can happen to us is that the walls of our inner walls become thinner. And when that happens, intercourse can be very painful. And also our desire for sex can also plummet,
Mm-hmm.
for lack of a better word. So once again, we don't like to talk about these things, but it's good to know that, first of all, it's normal, and it's part of the aging process, which I can't think of anything that's more normal. And there's help. Once again, Sasha, you know a lot more than I do how CBD can help in this regard.
Mm-hmm.
Something that, especially when we talk about the end of our reproductive cycles, there's so many things. I mean, if you ever read like a box of, you know, you know, one of these boxes that have supplements to help you to go through the change of life. My
Sure.
goodness, there's a list like of 20 things like
Mhm.
fatigue and weight gain and low sex drive and depression and anxiety. It's so depressing.
Mhm.
Yeah, sex is one of them. How can CBD help?
Well, so CBD and also THC can be helpful. And then there's other cannabinoids that can help with any inflammation that might be taking place and causing cramping, like CBDA or THCV. But to focus on the more well known CBD, THC, decreasing that pain. So that way, when you're, when you want to have sex with your partner, you're not thinking about that pain. Instead, you're thinking about the intimacy. Because when you start, when the pain comes about, you're no longer having that pleasurable, intimate moment with your partner. So getting that out of the way. Yes, very important. And then as well, increasing that desire because, if for some they lose it. And so THC might be one of those cannabinoids that can help to increase that desire and, make you want to experience that with your partner again.
Absolutely. Think about it as having a glass or two of wine. It just gets you all relaxed. And when you're relaxed, you're everything. You're in the flow of things, and things are much easier because you can be present and you can be in the moment, which is what you need to be
Mhm.
when you want to share these beautiful moments with your partner. I mean, we are physical beings, and one of the perks of having this bodies is that we can have sex.
Didn't I tell you guys Lisa is the perfect person for this conversation today?
So yes,
Yes. So,
so
yes.
that there's help, and I don't know because I'm not on the other end of perimenopause, um, but I'd like to think that a lot of these things normalize with time.
Hmm.
It's not forever. So if you're going through that list of things that you read on behind those PMS or premenstrual menopause uh, bottles, just know that it's not forever.
Hmm.
Even though it can feel like it.
Yes, yeah, and we talked about some conditions, and of course there will be more. So, I think what's important for you at home, if you're thinking is CBD or cannabinoid therapy in general, is it right for me? Is to just give yourself that self-assessment and ask, am I out of balance? For me, it was very evident. I was, like I mentioned, with my anxiety nightmares, my mother's anxiety, just jolting out of bed running for the stairs like my son was about to fall down the stairs. So I knew this is happening too much. I am out of balance. I need something to change. So it's kind of taking that self-assessment, taking the time to look at yourself. Wouldn't you say, Lisa?
Absolutely. I love that. I think it's something that COVID is teaching us, is to be more present and to reflect more, to regroup more. It's something that it's so important to our well-being and to life because we're forever evolving and changing. And so it's good to take inventory from time to time and have that self reflection. I think it's very important.
Yes, I like how you said that, take inventory. So if you're at home and your project today is take inventory and then you want to give us a call, talk to Lisa or myself or one of our other wonderful care specialists. You can do that. Lisa, how can we do that?
Well, I want to remind you that we are the Realm of Caring Foundation. And what does that mean? That means that we are a nonprofit that emphasizes and conducts research so that we can learn about cannabinoid therapy and take that information and educate the public on using cannabinoid therapy. So please, if you have any questions whatsoever, whether it's about women's health, men's health, human health, please call us. Our number is 719 347-5400, option 1. We're here Monday through Thursday from 8 to 4, and that's Mountain Standard Time. And that's why we're here, to help you. So please don't hesitate. We're happy to talk about these topics. Don't feel embarrassed. We've heard about everything there is to hear about. And it's really our joy and our honor to be able to serve our human colleagues.
Absolutely. Well, Lisa, thank you for joining us for Care Team Chronicles today. Thank you at home for joining us. Yes, absolutely. Thank you at home for joining us. We will see you next time. If we don't hear from you before then, you can always catch us here on Mondays at 11 for a new Care Team Chronicles. And until then, friends, please be well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.